Three, two, one. Hey, Frank, we're live. It's what? This isn't Sunday. It's Tuesday, June 16th. What are we doing here?
It's Tuesday. Welcome everyone to Everyman BJJ. This is a special Tuesday edition. We're making up for lost time here. We always make up for it. Some of us, like Noah, had the great road trip to go get his the new addition to his family, his new dog, and so we got to make up those additions. So here we are. We're gonna go improvisational because Noah, this is the weird thing. And you and I are both. I like that you're a fan. We're fans of preparation. We're fans of organization. But I always say the highest functioning people are masters of adaptation and improvisation. And I like that you're very open to that. We see that in jiu-jitsu where a lot of times the best moves are when people are playing, when they're flowing, when there's not as much pressure on them, and you sort of happen upon a new sequence or a new move. And I see that a lot in music. A lot of times for me, my favorite parts of songs a lot of times are when you get musicians together and we're just playing around. We're not in like a normal verse. We're not with a script, and someone's playing something. You say, hey, stay right there, stay that there. Hey, a little bit of this, and then you just sort of like gumbo with that down in New Orleans or something, right? It's just like, let's throw that in there. Let's see what that tastes like. So, I've always been a big fan of improvisation because this reminds me when I was doing my, the TEDx talks, a lot of times your speech could be between, say, 10 minutes and 17 minutes. I've seen some that were like 21 minutes if you're a really big name. And normally, almost always for a TED speech or a TEDx, you've got to have a script, right? You don't want to go up there and wing it and look stupid. You don't want to go up there with just talking points. You want to have a script. I'll tell you what, the thing I learned for me is that short speeches and scripted speeches are the hardest for me, because when you get the script, you were organized, you're prepared, you're not going to make a fool of yourself, but you're not as in the moment. You're not usually coming from the heart, and the heart, you aiming for the heart is what you want. That's what really moves people. We see that a lot in fighting. You see these fighters that aren't as technical all the time, and people love them because they fight with so much heart and so much fighting spirit. And then conversely, you see so many fighters that are super technical, but they're underappreciated because they don't have the wars, or they don't have to dig as deep for their, into their heart, or they're not always showcasing them. Floyd Mayweather was like this for a lot of his career. He didn't have to dig deep in a lot of fights. He wasn't in wars. He didn't have to show his heart. So it was all finesse and technique. And for a long time, actually, people weren't big fans of Floyd. That came later. That came because of longevity. But anyway, that's all a long way of I'm frozen on my screen. Can you see me, Noah?
Yeah, you're just fine. Yeah, you're you're coming across really well. No latency, no jitters, nothing like that.
So here we are.
I agree with you. Yeah, this is improv.
Yeah,
so
what's
improv.
The top of Noah Green's mind?
Oh, well, one of my jiu-jitsu buddies from Hinzo's, Christian Pierce, posted an article on medium.com today. You can look it up. Christian Pierce, Christian spelled like the Christ, I-A-N, and Pierce, P-I-E-R-C-E. And title of his article, it's called "We Care." And I assume you haven't had a chance to read it. This first you're hearing about it, but and that's not really what's behind this why we're just doing this impromptu podcast today. But it's just something that's front and center. This is a response. This is a response essay that speaks towards the inclusivity ethos of the jiu-jitsu mat, of the sport. And it's very interesting how all these I just saw a blurb that up to 20 major cities are looking to ban chokeholds from their police departments.
Yeah.
And it seems like jiu-jitsu is not a cure-all for everything, but it is an inoculation for facing violence and police having to work within the threat, the escalation spectrum of using force, the force spectrum. And I think that obviously, you know, uh, I respect one's right to freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and freedom to protest. Illegal rioting, destruction of property, threat and harm of other people. Obviously, that there's a bright line there. You know, that's a bright line where I don't support that. And with BLM, Black Lives Matter, I think the message makes a great point that they have, but I don't agree with defunding police in its aim to, you know, the police need more training. They need more training. You know, they get such little combative training in the academies. And you and I have spoken about that before. They need, you know, I don't ban chokeholds, but instead of going away in the opposite direction, they need to open themselves up to learning more of how to use control. You know, jiu-jitsu is the art of control. It is the art of control, and it's not the, you know, if you take away chokeholds, you know, Jocko Willem said it on Joe Rogan's podcast earlier today. That leaves them with what? A baton and a handgun and an electric shock. If you take away physical moves, you know, what the police lack are, you know, in these very limited, rare occasions, but they're happening enough. I mean, there are hundreds of millions of police contacts a year in this country and in worldwide. Just imagine what it's like outside of the United States. Imagine what it's like in other areas of the world. You know, I can't imagine what it would be like in India. You know, where there's a different attitude. You know, with so many different people and so many languages. With the Chinese, there's, you know, I think 20 Indian soldiers got killed today in a clash with the Chinese. There's a lot going on in this world. There's a lot going on. We are, you know, the planet is alive, but there's a lot of hope. There's a lot of good things going on too. You know, like Elon Musk just, you know, really lit a fire under his engineers to get us to Mars. You know, because time is going on. Our time on Earth is shrinking up. We've got to become an interplanetary species, not just, you know, here where we're destroying one another. So anyways, that's deep, but Frank, I gave you a buffet of items to pick from. Fire away.
Well, I haven't seen Christian Pierce's article. I have never heard of him. I'm sure he sounds like a talented guy. I have posted on medium.com before, and I have posted about, you know, a lot of the stuff that gets posted, I've posted before. You know, I've posted about how the Mats are a meritocracy, how it's the United Nations, the real United Nations, the true United Nations of the world, where and I posted this, we're talking 7 years ago, and I have a story. I'll have to dig it up. It's on my website, frankieforza.com, where I talk about how, you know, the police officer and the ex-convict, the Republican, the Democrat, the Jew, the Muslim, the Christian, the atheist, the black, the white, every color, every nation represented. And you don't need a whole bunch of laws or regulations. And it's just a really, there's a lot that the world can learn about that. Now, by the way, I think that overshadowed in all of this, you know, we still do have a ways to go. We still have a lot of racism, a lot of racial tension in America. America is a very violent country. It's a country that's very quick to violence on many levels. The history of this country is violent. We're very violent in rhetoric. We're very divided. I want us to be the United States. Right now, we look like the divided states. But there are still, what gets overlooked in this is how well some groups of people do get along. There is a subset of our population that are every kind of religion and every color of skin, and they get it.
Oh yeah.
We just need collectively to be that. We need a collective enlightenment, a collective movement where of people just that are educated, that are enlightened, that are coming from this good space. We have 330 million people. We just don't have enough people that are looking at, beyond skin color and beyond, hey, you're a liberal and I didn't like what you posted on Facebook, we're not friends anymore. Hey, I have my special checklist, and if you don't check my boxes, Noah, you're not my friend anymore. There's too much of that. I do think that there's a media role in that where, but so I without having read Christian Pierce's story, what you described to me, I've posted on that multiple times on my social media, on my website. I totally agree. I think it's a great place if they want to come in, and if politicians and whomever else want to come in and say, hey, how are these combat sports athletes able to integrate so many people? And you mean you don't have all these special rules? You don't have 1,000 rules when they walk in the door and signing waivers and signing their life away? Wait, you mean you don't actually have that many lawsuits in wrestling and in jiu-jitsu and in Muay Thai and in boxing? You mean you don't actually have it? You're not overrun with lawsuits? That's strange. I find that hard to believe, right?
Totally.
It's kind of self-policing and self-regulating, and people in a place where people are on their best behavior. One of the reasons is that there are consequences for bad behavior. I mean, there are consequences. Pain is always on the table. It's not in an illegal way. It's in a consensual way. It's native to it's embedded in the martial arts. You sign up for that. You agree to that. And there are consequences for knucklehead, bad, disrespectful behavior. Or we know that people's own egos run them off. The people that are the biggest jerks, whose egos can't handle it, who are the most bad apples, they just don't come back. They don't feel at home. They don't feel at peace. They don't feel accepted. Their egos can't take it. So it's an amazing place where you see the self-regulation and the self-policing in the martial arts on those mats. So that's the thing regarding Christian Pierce. There was another thing I saw on my social media page today, my Facebook page. Pedro Sauer, who's a Hickson, I think he's a Hickson Gracie black belt, and he trained with Elio Gracie as well. Pedro Sauer here in Utah was my first jiu-jitsu instructor back in 2001, and he posted something today. I guess MMA Junkie, USA Today. USA Today owns MMA Junkie, and they had they've been running a story for the last week or so about how training, jiu-jitsu training and et cetera, mixed martial arts training would help police officers. And there's a story that's been running on there. Well, guess who wrote that story back in 2001 for the Salt Lake Tribune after a police shooting, after a very suspicious police shooting? I wrote that story in 2001. I was writing that story as a blue belt, as a Noah Green of the Salt Lake Tribune newsroom, as a jiu-jitsu blue belt and somebody who wrestled for years. I wrote that story, and by the way, when I wrote it back in 2001, I got a little bit of pushback from the police department back then. I got a little bit of pushback. Some people didn't like that I wrote it. Some people thought I was very preachy. Some people thought, well, you just don't know. You don't know what we're up against. You have no clue. People just weren't ready. Jiu-jitsu wasn't in the consciousness. Not enough people knew what it was. So it's kind of like, hey, you're really overstepping your boundaries. Stick to journalism. You don't know. You don't have a clue. Now, fast forward here 19 years later, we're talking about ban chokeholds. We're seeing, we're seeing instances where police are overstepping their boundaries or rushing to force or using excessive force or even police brutality. Now, I want to say, because you and I both know, I mean, this is a complicated issue. There are many, I've said it before, I've trained with many upstanding and honest police officers. I've trained with them. I've shared the mats with them, wrestling mats, judo mats, jiu-jitsu mats. And I've sparred with a lot of them. I've competed against them. I also covered them as a reporter. So when I was with the Deseret News, the Las Vegas Review-Journal, the Salt Lake Tribune, I covered cops in courts, among other things. I've covered City Hall. I've been to the state legislature. I've been to the White House. So these issues that are here, everything that's colliding here, front and center, like these kind of discussions, I've been in this space for 20 years seeing it from many angles. So like you, we do need, I mean, it's clear you do need to have, we can't have anarchy. We do need to have a police force. We do need law and order. But what we need, to what we're saying is, we need police officers. We need the honest police officers to do a better job policing the dishonest police officers, the brutal police officers, the police officers who mess up. And when those police officers mess up, it can't be swept under the rug. There has to be greater accountability, right? Because up till now, I mean, as much as there are a lot of police doing a very hard job, very tough job, and at times a dangerous job, and a thankless job in many ways. But when officers do mess up, when officers are poorly trained, when they handle things poorly, there's not much accountability. And the officers, it's pretty much been for many, many years, for decades now, the officer's always right. And if you say anything back, you're now resisting, or you're going to, I'll charge you with gross misdemeanor or felony. So there's been a striking and alarming number, I should say, of cases where the officers have been excessive, or they've been brutal, or you've just looked at a situation, you say, this person shouldn't be a police officer, and yet they're still a police officer, right? And you look at, so getting to chokeholds and getting to training. Yes. As someone who's covered the police, and I think a lot of the really good police officers would say, yes, we need better training. Now, banning chokeholds, I do not. I think that's a knee-jerk reaction, and I think it's ill-advised. And you see this a lot in these kind of situations, where if there's a situation where a chokehold or some, that knee, with George Floyd, I mean, that's just, obviously that's absurd for someone to sit on someone's neck for that period of time. I personally think, Noah, that a lot of the times when police have people face down, I think again, just the videos that I've watched, the vast majority of times I see when they put people face down, I think it's unnecessary. I think it's totally unnecessary. Forget about putting a knee on someone. I just think that there's a lot of excessive force, especially when you have bigger men like yourself and they're face down and their lungs, they have trouble breathing, and you're putting weight on them, and you're cranking their shoulders. And I just, and not to mention, how hot is the pavement? Is it a summer day? Is the pavement 90, 95, 100 degrees? I mean, there's no thought given to that. How hot's the pavement sometimes, right? Sometimes there's been these summer days and that pavement gets hot and you got people face down. And so I think in a lot of instances, looking at the knees for sure. I mean, a lot of times the knees and what they do to people face down, I've seen quite a few instances that they're excessive. I think that needs to be put under a microscope. As far as a chokehold ban, I do not support that. I think that they should be rarely used, right? It should be a minority. I don't think, like you're saying, with a continuum, police officers shouldn't rush to choke someone. That would be absurd. But on the continuum, sometimes it's just like a regular fight. If we were to get in, if you and I were out in the streets and some people tried to attack us and we had no choice but to fight, sometimes the best way, I've seen people that were drugged out of their minds, they were on coke, they were on meth, whatever, and they can take a lot of headshots, they can take a lot of punishment. Well, the way you stop that person is you stop them with a chokehold. A chokehold doesn't matter what the pain threshold is, how much they can take. A chokehold shuts it down. It shuts down the crazy guy that otherwise is, you're doing everything you can to him. He's still standing. He's like a zombie and he's still coming at you. The chokehold is the antidote to that. So to take that weapon, look, again, I think it should be a last resort. I don't think we should see a bunch of police choking people. And the other question with the choke is, and this is the ignorance, I think, by a lot of the politicians, the other question is, it's how long you're holding the choke. We're seeing some videos where police are holding these chokes. Again, people are face down. There's 6 people holding someone down. They're holding their legs. So there's no wiggle, and they're choking them for 90 seconds, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. That's absurd. I mean, that's not something you're going to learn in a jiu-jitsu mat, right? You're not learning. Jiu-jitsu instructors, Henzo, Robert Drysdale, myself, we're not teaching people to hold chokes for 30 seconds, 60 seconds, 90 seconds. Anybody in any jiu-jitsu class would not teach you that. We would not teach you to hold a choke for 90 seconds or 2 minutes. It's something absurd. Even if you're holding, even if you were choking someone at 70%, if you start doing that a long time, that adds up. Like we've talked about that with the head and arm choke, where you're just choking at someone at 40%, little by little by little, but it slowly cuts down the blood to the carotid artery. So it really is people under these officers. You don't want to ban it. You just want them to use it very rarely in extreme situations, and you want them to understand the anatomy and the pathology of a choke, and to really have an in-depth understanding of what it means to choke someone, how long you're going to choke them for how hard, and the most paramount being, is it even necessary to choke this person? Is that even necessary? Because a lot of when we're talking about police brutality, a lot of the stuff that I've seen, it's like this just wasn't even necessary. These are usually situations that could be de-escalated, and they're petty stuff. It's police officers sometimes picking on people for petty stuff. It's like, come on, this is petty stuff. This is not even a big thing. So, those are the issues. But banning chokeholds, I don't think they're going to be. I don't think there's any legitimate jiu-jitsu black belt out there that would support an outright ban. I'm talking just for police. Forget about our sport. I don't think anybody who understands chokes, who's an expert on chokes, would not support a ban. Only someone who didn't understand a choke, who really didn't understand it, would say, let's ban all chokeholds.
You're totally. I think you're totally right about this, in how you're approaching the situation, and taking a like 5 steps back. If we see cycles of this, where what's going to happen? What's going to happen is we're going to have this pullback over the next 3. I don't know how long this cycle will go of running this direction, and it is a full sprint in the opposite direction of public safety. It is a full sprint. So we're gonna see this. This is a weird situation where we can't get together and train, and we have this worldwide protest going on against excessive force by police and targeting, profiling issues. We're seeing that, and what that's going to, obviously what happens here in that, it creates a vacuum. That creates an opportunity for things to happen. I need to shut my door. My puppy's barking, but
yeah.
So Frank, can you see, like you mentioned, 20 years ago, you wrote pieces about this. If we look at use of force questions, there's going to be a swing back in this other direction at some point, and it's going to happen with you have to think of, in this context, what will it take for the public's opinion to swing back the other direction? And we will never go back the same to where we are, where things were. But there's going to be events down the line.
You raised something very interesting.
I'll be right back.
And yeah.
No, I'm just going to shut the door because the puppy's barking.
Sure.
Go ahead.
So while Noah is away, I'm going to say Noah is raising.
I'm back.
He's raising an interesting issue that I think about a lot, and that is, if you go to, if you go more toward a libertarian society where you just say live and let people police themselves, let communities police themselves, and not have many police officers and not have many rules, and just let it sort of be like the like, remember the movie The Warriors back in the day, where people just claim turf and you just take care of, this is our turf.
Well, it's becoming it'll become vigilante. It'll become vigilante.
So,
it will become the Wild West anarchy in a sense.
Yeah. It's sort of like in an ecosystem, and people need to hear us
That's
out.
What it is.
People need to let me make this point, because the point of what Noah and I are saying is that this is complicated. It's a matrix. We're not saying, nobody wants police brutality. We have a lot of broken systems. We do have too many police officers. Despite having good police officers, we have too many police officers that are out there that are just too quick to rush to excessive force and don't know how to handle situations. And so when we talk about what's going on now, and we say, okay, maybe it's going to swing in the other direction, it'll swing to where you have a much weaker police forces in a lot of places, and then you just have sort of like who's going to have the power on the streets, who's going to, are the gangs going to run it, are the Are the guardian angels going to run it? What's going to happen? Is the mob going to run it? Like, what's going to happen in this power vacuum right now? Remember, I told you this, Noah, that there was a guy that I took a cab ride with, an Uber ride with last year, and he was a bigger guy, like 250 pounds, and his car was, it was a very average car, and we had a trip. It was like a 35-minute drive, and and so I was like, this guy, look, he's driving Uber, but he seems like he's important. I'm like, what's he doing driving Uber, right? He seems super educated. He has a presence about him, like he's been somebody, like he's important. So I start talking to him, and I get his story. And it turns out he was from Russia, and he had defected, and he had moved to America some years ago, and he got American citizenship. And I said, so I was asking him about, Russia and Vladimir Putin, because if you watch media in America, you would think that Vladimir Putin is very dispopular. Like if you watch a lot of our specials, you get one side of the news, and you hear, if you watch American media in general, you'll think, wow, the Russian people aren't too fond of Vladimir Putin. So I got a chance to ask him directly, an educated guy, and I said, well, what's your opinion of Vladimir Putin? And he said, well, Frank, Vladimir Putin is actually very popular in Russia. And I said, well, what percentage would you say really support him? He said, I'd estimate about 80% of the people. He is very popular. And so he told me his story. Now that's contrary to what we get here in the American media. And he told me his story, and I said, well, what's your story? Why'd you come here? You like Putin. You think, you say that Vladimir Putin is very popular in Russia. Why are you here? He said, well, when I was in Russia, I was doing well in businesses. I had some stores, and then I went and bought a bunch of real estate, and I was making a lot of money. And one day the mob came and visited me, and the mob said, you seem to be doing pretty well. There's some bad people around, and you're going to need protection from these bad people. So we can help you. We'll be your protection. You're going to pay us 25%. We're your new partners. So from that day forward, they became his new partners. They came back to him a year and a half later. Hey, you're doing really well. You still need more protection, man. You seem to be doing really well. We need 35% now to protect you. Okay. So then the mob comes back to him again. And says, listen, meet your new business partner. There's a woman, the wife of one of the mobsters. She's your new business partner, 50-50 split. So he said at that point, when they came to him and said, here's your new business partner, he was like, I think they're going to whack me. She's going to take over all the businesses. I'm out of here. I don't want to play this game. So his opinion was, based on that experience, he said, listen, to a lot of Russians, our choice was, do you want a strong mob or do you want a strong Putin? Strong mob, strong Putin. Now, of course, there are different decisions, but he said in his judgment, just talking to one man who had been there, who had lived there, who had done well, and who had an experience with the mob, he said a lot of us would prefer a strong Putin, even though that might not make sense to a lot of Americans. He's like, we would prefer a strong Putin because the mob was too unpredictable and even more dangerous. So to give,
okay.
Yeah. So with that prism, you'd say anytime you start moving something, you as a lot of times as a society, you do, okay, you're going to have a security vacuum. You're going to weaken the police because of some instances and a lot of videos and a lot of stuff that's tough to watch. And so what's going to fill that? I think sometimes, as somebody who covered police, as somebody who's thought about this a long time, I think that when the dust settles, we could actually wind up in a much stronger police state. It might not be 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, but with this experiment, if we take defunding the police to the extreme and we weaken the police and we sort of castrate them and we just sort of leave it to, well, let's just throw the spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. And let's just trust people to do the right thing and trust criminals not to be criminal. Let's just blame the police for everything, even though the police.
Frank, let me just kind of tilt, add a little facet to this. We defund the local police because the federal, what I think, and what you're alluding to is a strengthening of the federal police,
yes,
which is more along the lines of what
headed eventually, Noah. This is my prediction. My prediction is if we continue, even though some things it's just like in a relationship, it's a bad idea to make rash decisions. You're a married man, I was a married man, and we all know when you make just rash decisions, emotional decisions. And that's what we're doing now, because we're outraged, and people should be outraged because there's been a lot of injustice. There's been a lot of racism. There's been a lot of intentionally broken systems. There's been a lot of broken systems that disproportionately affect people of color. There's no question about it. Systems are long overdue to be fixed. There's been a lot of injustice, and there was if you were a police officer, you could pretty much get away with whatever you wanted, pretty much. I mean,
before the smartphone.
Yeah, you could get away with this, right?
Before the smartphone. Yep.
The bad police officers got away with a lot. It was always their word against your word, and now the video is saying otherwise, right? But we have to understand that where this looks to be headed to me is we're going to see, what is it, sort of a Batman scenario where the crazies take over the streets, and eventually the people will cry out and say, please, 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 please. And what it probably is going to mean is the next installation, when a stronger police force comes back around, there's a good chance it's going to be what you just said. It'll be federal police, and that will mean a greater concentration of power. So you won't have to send in the National Guard. You won't have to send in the military. You'll send in federal police. But those police will be under one power. Anytime power is this is just my opinion. It's very dangerous when all power is consolidated. Like, that's why I'm a fan of states' rights myself. I don't want a super big, strong guerrilla government, because then if you get somebody in there who's really pretty iron-fisted, it's a lot easier to run everything. And it's a lot easier to run it, to make it the same in Vegas and California. I like for California to be California. I like for Seattle to do things their way. I like for Utah to do things their way. I like for New York. I don't want one-size-fits-all government. I don't want one-size-fits-all policing, actually. I don't want one-size-fits-all anything. I like the states to have diversity. Anytime you make federal government stronger, if you get to something like what we're talking about with a federal police state, if the public eventually cries out for this 3, 4, 5, 6
that's what they're doing.
Then when you get that, you wind up getting one size fits all. And that, to me, I don't like that. If I go to Japan, I want to see how the Japanese live. I don't want the Japanese copying everything we do, right? I don't want California and Texas to be the same state. I want there to be a lot of differences. You want
to be able to move around. I know. I know.
So it's
that makes a lot of sense.
That's one thing for people out there watching. Jiu-jitsu teaches you this is not checkers. Jiu-jitsu is chess, but when you really get on your game, it's grandmaster chess, and when you really get on your game, it's grandmaster speed chess. And it's exactly what you and I are doing, Noah, which is to say, okay, we're making a very emotional, rash decisions right now that make sense right now, but let's look downstream and play the chess game and look at this, and it's like, oh my God, this could blow up in our face even worse. And that's what we've got to be on alert for. That is not to say we shouldn't fix these broken systems. We should. We need to level the playing fields. We need to fix these systems that are broken. We need, more opportunities for people in a lot of these inner cities who are disproportionately African American and people of color. We need better trained police officers. That's all real. But we're just saying it's how you do it. If we don't do it in the right way, we could be setting ourselves up for the kind of situation you and I are talking for now, which could be something a lot worse. It's like, be careful what you wish for. If you don't do it the right way and in the right spirit, be careful what you wish for.
So, we've tried to steer away from politics on this podcast.
We can't.
But
we can't at this point. Jiu-jitsu
is politics as well. Jiu-jitsu also has politics. So let's just throw it out to say, those you roll with, make sure they're voting. Frank, you need to go vote. We've got to be not in the top elections, but every time that ballot box is open, every time they're taking a ballot, got to show up. We got to show up. So,
well, look, and I'm not going to pick. I've never publicly said anything bad about either president, but
not just president level. It's local. It's all local. It's all local. You got to keep your eyes on the local stuff.
The choices we have. Come on. This is like just to tell you how the situation we're in as a country so terribly, and I would even say sadly divided. It saddens me sometimes to walk around and think about how divided we are. We're so divided, and then our choices. Come on, our political choices. I mean, come on.
Oh yeah.
Like this is just
Yeah.
this is you know, this is not our finest hour. I do think that just like anything.
Well, maybe it is. Maybe it is.
Yeah.
We're down. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. Hey, I've just got a couple minutes or less than 5 minutes, and I got to run because I got a call to
Yep.
do. You know, on my side of things, I've got I've got some job opportunities coming up, so I'm doing some prep with someone who's coaching me through some stuff. And it is I'm making the leap professionally over to something new. So I have been having late nights. I didn't get into my early morning shift yet. You know, I had late nights last couple of days just because of the nature of what's happened. But I'm going to be switching over to early bird here in the next 48 hours. It's just I had to get with someone else's schedule who's kind of a late. They're a night owl, so I had to get with their schedule. But I pulled him into coming in earlier to talk. So, anyways, I've got news coming. You'll be surprised on what it's about. I will tell you. You don't even know, and so I'll tell you soon.
I don't know. I do not know.
Yeah.
I'd like to be among the first to know.
Yeah. Oh, you will. You definitely will. Well, hey, I appreciate your availability. We can hop on, just have a few minutes together. You know, this is a quick half hour podcast, and maybe we can do another one of these in a day or two. We just jump on and vent a little bit.
Well,
you know, vent a little bit. I mean, we got some fights coming up, and
we have to remember every adversity has, you know, contains within it a ton of opportunity. So we have to remember that there's going to be a lot of good things that come out of this. There's going to be some unintended negative consequences. And as always, no matter how it shakes out, you constantly have to adapt. You constantly have to navigate it. And you still have to find a way to keep your sense of humor, to be happy, to love people, to forgive people. You know, that's the challenge now, is for us to adapt and to also come together to forgive each other, to stop being so judgmental, to stop saying, Noah, you have to check all my boxes or you're not my friend. To just stop with this. We're Americans. There's 330 million of us. We gotta, we gotta be united. We gotta, just like we share the mats, we gotta learn a way to do that in a civil way instead of rushing to violent rhetoric and violent actions. We have to find a way as a country to be like we are on the mats, like to be respectful, and maybe you get after each other, and then after that you shake hands and you talk a little bit and you go grab dinner. So that's really what that's what I'd like to see, a very jiu-jitsu-esque solution to the world's problems.
When I train in gi and the other guy really beats me up, you know, does a good job, and I have to tap a lot. And along the way, our belts, you know, on our gis fall off. You know how your belt falls off and you keep rolling. I always try to be the first one to hand him his belt, out of respect. You know, here's your belt. You know, out of the meritocracy. You know, because the mat is no place for attitude. In no place. You leave that off. The attitude's off the mat. The only time I get an attitude is whenever someone's trying to intentionally hurt me, and I mean the bad way. You know, not the good way. The good way's fine. I don't mind that. It's the bad way. It's the guy who uses all his strength and doesn't know. I mean, you know, maybe that's a judgment or a wisdom issue. But it's the guy who's like, you're on the mat, therefore I should beat you down.
Yeah, a good training partner, I know you got to go. A good training partner, I've always said this to you, has consideration for you as well. Yes, they want to win. Yes, they want to dominate. Yes, they want to get better. But somewhere in their top 3 or 4 priorities, when you shake hands and knuckle up, there has to be consideration for you. And there has to be somewhere, I don't want to hurt Noah. This is not about me hurting you. I may want to dominate you. I may want to dominate the scoreboard. I may want to, just have my way, but I am not trying to hurt you. And some people don't have that anywhere, and it's not a priority for them. They're worried about them and them not getting hurt and them getting better and them dominating and just crushing you, and not hurting you is nowhere in their brain. But then when they hurt you, oh, you're okay? Are you okay? And you're thinking, wait, the time to be considerate was like 30 seconds ago, right? When you were cracking my knee. not
Right.
now, not after the fact. So
when you hurt your training partner, you're doing
Yeah.
solo drills after that. You're just doing solo drills or you're sitting. You're not training jiu-jitsu anymore.
Yeah. And that's a mindfulness. That mindfulness of not hurting your partners is the mark of masters. That's why when you train with the upper belts, you're much less likely to get hurt because they are mindful of it.
Well, thank you very much for your time today, sir. I'm gonna need to rush. Sorry.
Right.
I'll get you. We'll get some more time in a day or two. That way, because I know we've got a lot to talk about.
That meeting, Can't wait to hear
about it. Thank you, sir. All right.
Hey, bud.
All right. Take care.